The recent weapons testing phase of KF-21 Boramae has reignited a central question among South Korean defense observers and the general public alike. Is the country's first indigenous supersonic fighter genuinely combat ready? Or is it still transitioning from a promising development program into a truly operational weapon system? This question matters not only for national pride, but for real-world readiness on the Korean Peninsula, where timelines are compressed and margins for error are extremely narrow. KF-21 has now moved beyond the symbolic stage of rollout flights and basic performance validation. Weapons testing marks a decisive transition in any fighter program. It is the point at which an aircraft stops being evaluated primarily as a flying machine and starts being judged as a fighting system. However, for many viewers, especially those less familiar with aircraft development cycles, there is a tendency to equate weapons testing with combat readiness. In reality, the gap between these two milestones is often measured in years rather than months. At its current stage, KF-21 is operating in what can best be described as an advanced integration phase. The aircraft has demonstrated stable flight characteristics, reliable propulsion, and baseline sensor functionality. Weapons testing confirms that the airframe can safely carry, release, and guide ordnance under controlled conditions. This is essential, but it is only one layer of a much deeper operational equation. Combat readiness depends not just on whether a missile can be fired, but on whether it can be employed effectively in a complex, contested battle space. The weapons being tested on KF-21 are not random selections. They focus on core mission sets that matter most for the Republic of Korea Air Force. Air-to-air missiles, both short-range and medium-range, are central to air defense and interception missions over the peninsula. Precision-guided munitions form the backbone of strike operations against hardened or time-sensitive targets. These choices reflect a deliberate prioritization. Before expanding mission diversity, the aircraft must prove reliable in the most fundamental combat roles. What deserves particular attention is that the most challenging part of weapons testing is not the missile or bomb itself. Modern guided weapons are already mature technologies. The real difficulty lies in integration. Radar, electro-optical sensors, fire control computers, and data links must all function seamlessly together. A fighter that can physically launch a missile but struggles to track targets accurately under electronic interference is not combat effective. This is why integration testing consumes such a large portion of development time and budget. For South Korean audiences, comparisons with existing fighters are unavoidable. KF-21 is often measured against the F-16 and F-15K, both of which have long service records and well-understood combat roles. At present, KF-21 does not fully replace either platform. The F-15K remains the primary deep strike asset, optimized for heavy payloads and long-range missions. The F-16 continues to serve as a flexible, multi-role workhorse with decades of incremental upgrades behind it. However, this does not mean KF-21 is underperforming. It means it is following the same maturation path seen in other modern fighter programs. Early operational versions are rarely expected to dominate all mission sets. Instead, they are introduced gradually, taking on specific roles while feedback from real-world operations and exercises inform subsequent upgrades. From this perspective, KF-21's current status is not a weakness, but a realistic reflection of program discipline. A critical question for South Korean viewers is how KF-21 would perform in an actual crisis scenario today. The honest answer is that it could contribute meaningfully, but within defined limits. In defensive counter-air missions, particularly when operating alongside established platforms and ground-based air defense systems, KF-21 could already provide value. Its modern avionics and sensor fusion offer advantages in situational awareness, even if its full weapon suite is not yet operationally optimized. In offensive roles, especially those involving complex suppression of enemy air defenses, KF-21 would currently rely heavily on coordination with other assets. This is not unusual. Modern air combat is inherently network-centric. No single platform operates in isolation. What matters is whether KF-21 can integrate into this network effectively, exchanging data with airborne and ground systems in real time. Weapons testing is a necessary step toward that goal, but it does not complete the picture. One area that should not be underestimated is pilot training and doctrine development. An aircraft becomes combat-ready not only when its systems are certified, but when pilots are trained to exploit those systems instinctively under stress. This process cannot be rushed. Even after initial operational capability is declared, years of exercises and refinements typically follow. For KF-21, this phase will be decisive in determining whether it merely supplements existing fighters or gradually reshapes how the Air Force fights. Looking ahead, the next milestones will matter more than the headlines surrounding initial weapons tests. Expanded integration of additional munitions, improvements in software stability, and validation of performance under electronic warfare conditions will define the aircraft's real combat value. Each successful step reduces uncertainty and builds confidence, not just among engineers and commanders, but among the public whose taxes fund the program. For South Korea, KF-21 represents more than a single aircraft. It is a statement about technological independence and industrial maturity. But national pride should not obscure sober assessment. At this moment, KF-21 has crossed the threshold from experimental prototype to emerging operational system. It has not yet reached the point where it can be described as fully combat-ready across all mission profiles. That distinction matters. Overstating readiness risks disappointment and unrealistic expectations. Understating progress ignores the very real achievements already made. The most accurate assessment lies between these extremes. KF-21 is no longer a paper project or a demonstrator. It is a real fighter entering the most demanding phase of its life cycle, where engineering meets operational reality. In the coming years, the aircraft's evolution will be shaped by how effectively it absorbs lessons from testing and early service. If integration challenges are addressed with discipline and transparency, KF-21 has the potential to become a reliable pillar of the Republic of Korea Air Force. Weapons testing is not the end of the journey. It is the point at which the journey becomes serious. For viewers watching this program closely, the key takeaway is simple. KF-21 is not yet the finished sword, but it is no longer raw steel. What happens next will determine whether it becomes a decisive combat tool or merely a stepping stone towards something greater.